with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FANation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Live show. We are back here after a little bit of a Christmas break. 7 games on the DraftKings main slate here this evening. We talked about it on the previous show. Some pretty fun matchups. Plenty of injury news, most of which we've kind of gotten. A lot of guys that are questionable. All in all, it should be a fun time to jump back into it. 7 games. Kind of like the sweet spot slate. You and I talk a lot about 6 to 8 games is where we like to be. Grande, how was your Christmas?
Christmas was a lot of fun with kids. It's obviously, a very active day as opposed to no kids. You are able to like slump on the couch and just kind of, that's like, I guess, a day in the life of any parent in general, not just like on Christmas, but it's obviously an interesting shift from going from like kids to no kids. And then, you never sit down on Christmas again. But it was a very fun day. I thought basketball was amazing the entire day from start to finish. Obviously Nuggets, Suns. I think it's tough for the NBA to like have a 10:30 game and expect the East Coast to like be there totally. It was a fun first half. It was like kind of a blowout in the second half. But all in all, it was great basketball. We saw what the future of the NBA could look like in a lot of different games. And we see some more future stars and current stars on today's slate as well.
For sure. And we do appreciate all of you guys who are tuning in here. Coach Chris in early saying, yo, our guy, I see through you popping in, always in the Discord. The Prince, always in Discord in the chat. And King of All Trades here as well. If you guys have any comments or questions, throw them in the chat here. We'll be happy to help you all out, build your lineups this evening. Excuse me. Of course, we also have our holiday sale still going on right now. That is 50% off the All-Pro monthly package. That's $19.98 a month for the year, all 2025. If you cancel any time, if you cancel and decide to resubscribe, it's $39.97. So take advantage of this 50% offer. Includes all draft guides, cheat sheets, betting, seasonal, DFS content, Discord, tools, you name it. Everything on site for 50% off for all of 2025. That sale is going away soon, so take advantage of that. Begins with a 7-day free trial as well. So fantasyalarm.com/holiday. Enter the promo code that autofills there for you and sign up to join the family. Let's get into it. It's a 7-game slate. We got 3 guys over 10K. 2 of them are at the point guard position. That's SGA at 10-3. LaMelo Ball at 10K. Rounding out the 9K range, Damian Lillard, Trae Young, and Scotty Barnes. You and I last night, we talked about it. We were going to look at the ownership and kind of decide, when it comes to spending up at the point guard position, if we're going to find any leverage between SGA and LaMelo Ball in terms of ownership here. Has anything changed your thoughts on the top 2 guards today?
I am surprised, I guess, that they're not higher owned.
Right.
Is my first thought. And it's kind of held pretty consistent all day of where their current rostership is. So no, I think SGA is an amazing play. And I think like OKC in general, when they're in competitive games, are a team you should look at, right? Like they're without one of their best players. They're without one of their key rotational pieces in Alex Caruso today. So OKC already, you knock Chet and Caruso off the roster, and a lot of weight is in SGA's court. And if it is going to be more competitive, Indiana's won 5 in a row. They're home. They play at a fast pace. They're 20th in defense. Like, I think that's an elite play for the ownership that he's currently getting. Yep. And I also feel the same way kind of about LaMelo. Really good matchup. Obviously, you assume Bilal Coulibaly defense awaits. That's, would make the most sense. How Coulibaly always guards the opposing team's best player. He is in. But I think there is something to be said about like, what does his groin kind of look like? Can he hold up on LaMelo?
Sure. Does it even matter the way LaMelo?
Right. Does it even matter? Yeah. Does it even matter? So, and he's not getting a lot of ownership. So I have not changed at all. like, obviously, I shouldn't be surprised to see Trey's ownership where it is. Trae Young, is the highest rostered point guard of the day in a game with 242 implied points.
Yep.
But like, more often than not, you and I would probably both agree with this, and I think DraftKings pricing them and FanDuel pricing them the way that they are would agree with this, is that SGA and LaMelo have a way higher floor ceiling combination.
Yeah.
Like, Trey has equally high of a ceiling, but his floor is not what SGA's floor is, and his floor is not what LaMelo's floor has been when LaMelo plays 30 plus minutes. So I'm probably going to take the leverage on LaMelo and SGA. I think you could probably play two of them if you want to, but I personally, I do like SGA and LaMelo over Trey, especially given that Trey is the highest rostered guard of the day.
Yeah. Even higher roster than Ball and SGA with Scotty Barnes. I think this maybe just ended up being a price point thing. You and I talked about it on the show this morning, and we thought Scotty Barnes was going to be like a tournament leverage play. And yet, at least for now, there's still time, before roster lock for these things to adjust. And oftentimes we do see them adjust kind of drastically one way or the other as news comes out, as Power types in here. Jimmy Butler officially out tonight, something we were sort of anticipating happening, officially out though. Scotty Barnes coming in around 19%. We weren't really high on him in this particular spot. The way Memphis has played, they've been blowing teams out. Scotty Barnes hasn't paid off this price tag here in a couple of slates. And now we're seeing him come in at $9,100 and coming in as one of the more higher rostered point guards here on the slate. Where are you when it comes to Scotty Barnes, now seeing that he is among the higher rostered guards?
I mean, I think it's a game thing. 240 implied points in that game. He also has point guard small forward eligibility on a kind of banged up team. So, I did think he was going to be lower rostered, but I get it. Memphis is number one in pace. We talk about pace all the time. It doesn't get better than that. And not that Toronto's playing slow, but Memphis is number one overall. We know Scotty Barnes is super good peripherally, and he's kind of been like flip-flopping, whether it's been the rebounds or the assists. But I think the most important thing last game was that, hey, some shots fell, and he took a lot of them. So if he can combine all three of those things, well, we're going to get that run of Scotty where every slate, you and I were like, hey, guys, what are we doing? Why is nobody playing Scotty Barnes?
Yeah.
This price isn't too far off from that. Right? Like we're not like too far removed. The one thing you just have to factor in is the game. Memphis is dogging people. Like, they are dog walking.
It's 11.5 point spread, right? So now we talk blowouts often here. They lost to the Knicks by 15 and Barnes still played 36 minutes in the game, right? So maybe he's just out there no matter the situation.
Yep.
But yes, Memphis playing at a fast pace hasn't necessarily worked out for the opposing teams there, because that's just them scoring a whole bunch of points on you, right? and closing those games out. With the Butler news, Tyler Hero is coming in as our third highest priced, highest rostered point guard on the slate. He's $7,900. It's not to jump past Morant, Murray, and Halliburton, but obviously with the Butler news there, Hero in kind of what we consider to be a down spot, does that make him more or less enticing to you? No Butler comparative to like a Morant, a DeJounte, a Halliburton.
I don't, we know, and I'm not saying this because I'm currently wearing an Orlando Magic hat.
Sure.
But we know what's waiting for Tyler Hero on the other side of the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy with a big bald spot under his big headband that he wears that is going to play very annoying defense for the next 40 minutes of Tyler Hero's life. So I get it. He's also been amazing peripherally, John. So like in a game where Tyler Hero last game doesn't give you ceiling scoring and he looked kind of bad offensively, 5 for 13, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. And I actually did the pick'em articles at fantasyalarm.com today, and I wrote up his rebounds because the last 3 games, he's second on the team, over 15 potential rebounds per game.
Mm-hmm.
And the assists are the same thing. Those 3 games without Jimmy Butler, who, by the way, not getting traded, according to Pat Riley. I don't know if you saw the statement that Pat Riley made, but not going to be traded. They're just going to lose him in free agency next year.
Shams, Butler's agents like still disputing Shams reports that Butler wants to be traded. Like, who knows?
This league, John. This league.
Yeah.
I'm a little indifferent about, again. I'm being very contrarian in some spots today. Like IC3, you're talking about the top 2 could be blowouts, like in terms of SGA and LaMelo Ball. You could say that about any possible game.
Charlotte and Washington, though, it's only a 4-point spread. Like
what either game? What are we talking? I mean, right. 5.5 and 4.5, right? Like, and then you're talking about like if Tyler Hero's in the game with a 208 implied total, like there's like a distinct difference between the 2, like the 3 game environments. Scotty Barnes is an 11.5 point spread we talked about. So, I mean, I'm still leaning towards like the top guys. I know the question was like Morant, Murray, Halliburton, or Hero. Like the chalk is obviously on Hero. I think I would probably pivot to any of the other guys. Probably not Halliburton.
Okay.
Not that we know he could play him in tournaments. The minutes have been great. The consistency's been like pretty much there.
Better at home than away.
Not my favorite spot to attack, but if to play devil's advocate here, just to like, if I think that I'm going to play SGA and that game's going to stay competitive, obviously someone's keeping it close for Indiana, or Indiana's competitive enough. So would I play Hero any of these guys? Yeah, I think Ja and Murray have crazy high ceilings if you get 30 minutes out of Ja Morant.
Sure.
I think
you're getting less than 10% on DeJounte today.
Yeah, who just went for a cool 60 bomb. So you said it, I think, a couple slates ago? You're like, we're getting the Spurs version of DeJounte Murray.
Yeah, for the most part.
I don't think, 6 steals is a little bit much. But
he
eventually
should be shooting more. Like obviously the 15, 12, 15, like 24 and 19 feels more of the DeJounte I'd expect. He also hit no threes. Not that he's like a knockdown 3 shooter, but
he's making no shots at all. He just needs to make shots.
He had the hand injury, right? So maybe the hand is like, we talked about conditioning. It's like, he'll come back and play right away. We didn't really consider, maybe the hand is like throwing off his shooting or something like that. So
Bulls at 240. You're right. 100%. Also, one guy is pretty highly rostered compared to the other 2. So that's where...
Yeah. And I'm fine playing the chalk of Trey. I think there's other guys that you can be different about. But we're also just talking. I mean, we actually built a lineup last night. I think we had 2 spend ups. So, like, if you wanted to go an SGA Trey lineup, certainly can.
Yep.
But 224 game total... I mean, what more does SGA really have to do in some of these games? He could go for 68 and a 224 total. It's not like a huge fall off there. He feels safer playing a 1K cheaper Bane over a Hero with a minutes cap. I don't know. I think I'd rather play Hero than Bane. What do you think?
I like current form Desmond Bane. Like, he's actually making shots. That's been kind of the issue with Desmond Bane.
Is Ja on a minutes cap?
Not like officially, but I would say with the way that his injuries have been, that we're not getting in like a game versus Toronto versus a game like, OKC. I'm sure Ja's minutes are, usually more secure.
Sure. All right. So we have that grouping there. Jordan Poole. A lot of people are liking this Washington-Charlotte game. Brogdon's actually getting a lot of ownership today.
Mm-hmm.
Not Poole. So what are your thoughts on the Wizards guards? Everybody's playing for Washington, by the way, except for Kuzma. So
yeah, everyone but Kuzma. I mean, he's gonna still be a high upside scorer. So, he's been good at times peripherally. He's been really good scoring lately. And the minutes have been great. So I have absolutely no issues getting to Jordan Poole. I like him in tournaments quite a bit.
Okay. We had a question on Fred VanVleet as well. What are we thoughts on FVV here?
It's never been like he's just, he's still not shooting great, but when he shoots well, he has like big games. That Charlotte game, he easily goes fifth, probably like somewhere near 50 fantasy points if that game stayed competitive. So no Dylan Brooks, possibly no Tari Eason. We don't know the status there. They could just be shorthanded. And Van Vliet plays 40 minutes in competitive games, so or right up there. So I have no issues getting to Van Vliet. I think he's super safe. He's not my favorite guard on Houston, but he's definitely solid.
All right, we got this mid-tier range, kind of a hodgepodge of guys in the 6K. All the Chicago guards are here, a bunch of questionable guys as well. Is there a play in this Van Vliet down to Nembhard, I guess, that you have interest in here today?
Van Vliet to Nembhard. I mean, obviously, we'll see what happens with the Bulls. They already ruled Lonzo out, so there's minutes at the guard spot that I'm assuming will just be eaten by the 3 guards that the Bulls have. If Io and Giddey sit, I'd play Kobe White. I'd play 100% Kobe White. I mean, 6,200 point guard, shooting guard with like their other 3 guards out. If one of them sit, you're probably still interested in 2 of them because, again, like Lonzo's not there to cannibalize minutes, and neither is whoever the other guard that sits, right? If Giddey sits or if Io sits. So if one of them sit, the other 2 are incredibly interesting. If all questionables that the Bulls have sit, then Kobe White is one of the best plays. You have 3 Bulls like spend ups that you can make an elite case for. So I don't have like a particular preference here. We're still waiting like some of the news. I guess my question to you, I'll just turn it around to you. Are you buying or selling the Brogdon chalk at 5,300?
I mean, the minutes have been great for like what we expect out of Brogdon, right? We're getting the mid-20s, higher ceiling of the upper there. The scoring has been pretty good in some of these games. I think it's viable, but having everybody healthy, I think, is where I am a bit hesitant. But he played 27 against Charlotte and had 37 fantasy points. I don't think it's a surprise if you look at the ownership. Guys who dominated Charlotte 2 games ago are also all getting a lot of love here today. My guy, Alexander Sarr, is the highest ranked, highest projected roster player of the slate. Hurts me because I wanted to play him. I'll still play him, but I played him at like 6% 2 games ago, and now he's 30% today. So I think people are just kind of running back to the well. Plus, it is a good price point for what he can give you. You get 5x, you get 7x against Charlotte last time out. So sure, in a multi-lineup build, I think I get some Brogdon. I don't know if I'm single entering playing Brogdon. Are you?
If he's like last piece in, he's over a fantasy point per minute this year. So.
Oh, yeah, never been a problem. It's just, again, everybody but Kuzma is playing. So
does he start again?
If he does, then I have more interest, right?
Poole, Koulibaly, Sarr, right? We say the same thing every time. It's those 3, and then is it Champagny probably, right? Champagny's probably your 4th starter.
Yeah. And
then either
Brogdon,
Bub,
Harrington.
It's probably Bub or Brogdon, right? It's probably one of those 2.
Mm-hmm.
Would you just have interest in like simply the starter in that scenario?
Probably.
Like over the other, like if Bub is starting, because I don't think Bub is as good as a producer as Brogdon.
No, definitely not. I would not play Carrington. I wouldn't play Carrington at all, honestly. I don't have any.
So it's a Brogdon starting or a little uncomfortable for you is what you're saying.
Yeah, because if he's not starting, I think there's a chance that he would play like 22 minutes and 30 minutes, right? So
I think it's important for them to play him mid-20s so that they can be like, all right, he can get through. Like, look, guys, he could play 4 straight games and make it. Even though he already broke down after 5 the last time we did this. So I'm good with Brogdon if he's like last piece in, but I'm not like going out of my way to like plug him into my lineup.
Okay. Value at point guard. Do we have a Murphy status update? I mean, obviously.
He's expected to play.
Okay. Hawkins had the 34 minutes in that game against Denver. Obviously, you called him out on the Morning show knocked down 25 actual, randomly had 3 blocks. But can be a bucket. Where does he fit in that rotation? No Ingram tonight.
He's in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, is he their 6th man? Yeah. Do they play the starters a lot of minutes? Also, yeah. So hard for me to like particularly say he's going to be like really viable. I would say the only things really that we need to talk about are, I just had like my brain shut down. Cason Wallace is an option because there's no Caruso. We saw Cason Wallace and Aaron Wiggins be the 2 beneficiaries earlier in the year when there was no Caruso.
Yeah.
So Wallace at 43, I think could be an option. We'll see if he's in the starting lineup or not. If he's not, and Wiggins also played a bunch. Isaiah Joe might start. We'll see. And then what happens with Brooklyn? If Simmons doesn't play on the front leg of a back-to-back, then this whole conversation becomes moot because Shake Milton becomes your most popular point guard of the day. Probably.
Yeah, Josh asked about Martin.
He looks like Dak Prescott. That's my opinion. Dude, he has the Dak like beard. You know, Dak has that like specific beard. And in his picture, I'm like, have we ever seen Tyrese Martin and Dak like in the same room?
Probably.
But I think Shake would be your chalky play of the day if we get no Simmons.
At shooting guard, again, a lot of these guys we have touched on. Brandon Miller considered questionable here for today. We'll see whether or not he gets in or not. We'll know. 7 p.m. Levine, $7,100. Got McCollum there. We have the aforementioned Desmond Bane as well, coming off 2 big games for him. Thoughts at shooting guard tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I like Levine in tournaments. He's had a couple bad games, but nothing a 240 game total can't fix. He's gonna see Great Barrier Thief, that is for sure. Where like Dyson Daniels is guarding Zach LaVine. That is just kind of what it is. So if you don't like that, then you play other Chicago Bulls, right? Because there's only one Great Barrier Thief on that team. There's not 2 of them. If there's 2 of them, that's scary. Like imagine Great Barrier Thief going to like Houston or something.
Right.
Dyson Daniels being on a Houston Rockets team. I like Levine. You could always play McCollum in tournaments. He has a very high ceiling when there's no Ingram, no Zion. He also kind of has a killer floor at this price. The aforementioned Desmond Bane is solid. The aforementioned Dyson Daniels, if there's no Trey, is solid. But you could play Murphy, who's been really good shooting the basketball lately, and we know how like elite Trey Murphy can be when he's making shots.
Your chalk today is Amen, obviously.
Yeah, he's
for the mid tier. Then we have the value with Queen. Amen Thompson, 38 minutes with no Dylan Brooks the other day, 46 fantasy points. He started. Great matchup here against the Pelicans. Everybody's going to go back to the well. He's good chalk to me. I wouldn't shy away from 6K Amen Thompson.
I'm confused. I've seen some places projecting his minutes, and I don't agree at all, because I think if his minutes were projected properly, he would be the highest rostered player of the slate, and it wouldn't even be close, because he just played 38 in a game that was a blowout. I know it's not indicative of a blowout. It was a literal 30-point game until and they just keep, this is always what they do with Amen Thompson. They just keep him on the floor. He's always in blowouts. So I'm just gonna play Amen Thompson. I do think like Houston is really interesting. You're getting a lot of them really low owned for a team with like solid implied total overall. Only one of them, two, I guess, if you count Van Vliet, getting any types of ownership.
Yeah.
Do you think that changes if Tari Eason's officially ruled out? Do you think everything changes for Houston?
I mean,
I think ownership's probably rise. Though, I guess that was my question to you.
I would agree with you there. Pelle Larsson now questionable for today.
Oh, dude. Oh, no. It's going to be such a nightmare playing Miami.
So,
my God. It's going to be the worst time ever.
No Butler. Probably no Larsson now. Going to get some Alec Burks.
They're gonna play Kevin Love like 18 minutes, DMP to 18-minute slate breaker. I will say, like, I will absolutely take the L on Jalen Green the other day, $6,300. Did nothing. Like me, you, and Jalen Green all did the same against the Charlotte Hornets. I would not be afraid to go back to the Jalen Green well.
Okay.
Obviously,
he had a huge game against them 2 games.
He just has a really high ceiling when somebody is out, because him and Jabari have always been the 2 guys that have lost minutes. So without Brooks, there's less minute competition. I'd be perfectly fine getting to Jalen Green as well.
Sure. I have more value plays in this mid-tier. Again, Jalen Green and Thompson were there. Again, I guess we go all the way down, right? I mean, Duncan Robinson now has to be seriously considered. Trevelyan Queen is your second highest rostered play, 34 minutes.
Yeah, and we got the Gary Harris out already.
Yep. So those are the 2 values, I guess. And then Alec Burks is way down here at 3,200. Again, he played 24 minutes in that game. Larson also played in that game. Larson's not going to play now. Probably not. Not officially out, just downgraded to questionable.
Boy. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, it's hard to project Miami in general, like, to begin with. And now they have Larson added to the injury report that already had Butler out, already has Drew Smith out, has Rozier questionable, has Josh Richardson out. So it's very hard to, like, definitively say who's going to play on a nightly basis. But I'd be comfortable with Duncan in a scenario where they rule Rozier out, and I'd be comfortable with Duncan in a situation where they rule Pelle Larson out. Realistically, like, he played 25 minutes last game with those guys in. He just didn't play the 4th quarter, which would suck. If you're just playing Duncan Robinson, he just doesn't play in the 4th quarter. That would kind of suck. So
yeah.
I like Duncan. I don't like him as much as I like Trevelyan Queen. Now that we got the Gary Harris news, Trevelyan Queen has been really good per minute in the last 2 games. It just kind of is what it is. And you said it. I think you said it very, very well yesterday. Like, he was in the middle of a 28-point comeback. One of the primary reasons as to why they came back. And he did it so well that they booted Wendell Carter to the bench for him. He's not a high usage guy. 17% usage last game. In a game, he scored 17 actual points. But, like, he's a floor spacer, and he's really free, and it allows you to do a lot. So,
and Queen starting again as I see through you pops in here today.
Yeah, so. I mean, I think it's just a kind of an easy plug and play, as opposed to, like, for Duncan, and we'll know. But, like, right now, it stresses me out right now playing any Miami Heat guy, knowing that, like, people are still questionable, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, and that's just.
I mean, this game is at 7:00, so we will get that starting lineup.
We will,
ahead of time. But I mean, again, Larson played 17 minutes in that last game. He's not getting those minutes. Don't exist anymore. Drew Smith played 8 minutes in that game. Obviously, those minutes don't exist anymore. Now, again, Larson could be in. We don't know. He's just quite downgraded to questionable, but we will find that official news out. Those minutes could go to anybody, but I just, Alec Burks got a first half rotation. Would you rather play, if you had to pick one, Alec Burks or Trevelyan Queen?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
One is, we know, a high usage player, right? Like,
what is the context of it is everyone out for Miami?
Well, if Larson's out,
because
Butler's out.
Rozier is also on the injury report, and he also didn't play last game.
Right.
I think Rozier matters big time here.
Okay.
If Rozier were to sit, then yes, I would have interest.
Do we have do they have a morning shoot around today?
No, but do you remember he was listed probable? And this has happened like twice with Terry Rozier this year, where he's been listed probable. And do you remember during the show, I was like, they're waiting for the team doctor to show up to clear him. And then the team doctor was like, nah, dude, you're not playing. Why are you listed probable? So I'm a little indifferent about
So
Burks and
Magic beat writer 3 minutes ago. Terry Rozier will go through his pregame shoot around. Still questionable. Pell Larson downgraded to questionable. So that was 3 minutes ago.
Okay.
So,
I am less likely to play Alec Burks if Rozier plays.
sure.
Because I think Rozier can just absorb a lot of those minutes.
Yeah.
And he more than likely would. But if we get no Rozier, then I do think what you said, because Burks was playing prior to the Drew Smith injury. We had looked at it last night. He was playing with Drew Smith. So where I think he picked up minutes because of Drew Smith, he picked up minutes definitely because of Rozier, and then definitely picked up more because Drew Smith, but he was playing regardless. So a lot of have to break right for Alec Burks, I think, but I mean, he's definitely in our player pool. For now, if Rozier were to play, my answer would be Trevelyan Queen.
Yeah, I mean, their second unit for that game was Burks, Drew Smith, Jovic, Larson, Ware. And, that was it. Those are the 5 that were their second unit in that game. So, and then obviously they lost 2 of those plays here tonight. So we will see what happens.
Playing 10 guys in the first quarter.
Yes, they did.
Like that's the part that I always talk to you. Like, that's why I'm always like, I get it if you want to play 10 during a game. They played 10 in a first quarter. Like in a first quarter. No, I don't think there's anything else.
Small forward has obviously some guys we've discussed. RJ Barrett's there at 89. Cam Johnson, 74. Again, a lot of these other guys we've kind of discussed. You got Koulibaly, Mather, and Hunter. Where are you sitting with small forward tonight?
Yeah, I mean, RJ, I'd rather play Scotty, but obviously there's leverage playing RJ. Cam J,
Sure. I mean,
good.
You can play Amy Thompson here, right?
Yeah.
You can play Zach LaVine here. You can play a lot of guys with the dual positional eligibility. So you don't have to be too much different than some of the plays we've talked about. But obviously, again, you've been pretty high on Koulibaly this year. You had 35 fantasy points against Charlotte, went for 51. So there's obviously some nice upside we've been getting out of this kid.
I mean, dude, he was the 4th overall pick last year, right? And people knew him for his defense. No bag. Yeah. Maybe got drafted because he played with Wemby. TBD on that, right? But he has seemingly developed a better bag. He still can't shoot threes, but the field goal percentage is fine. Very consistent. Double figures in 5 straight games. 32 fantasy points or more in 5 straight games. The rebounding has been nice. Obviously, I think the rebounding helps to not have Jonas Valanciunas in the starting lineup, right? Like your Alex Sarr is not a rebounder as Valanciunas is, or at least yet. And Valanciunas is a vacuum. So I am good on Koulibaly if you end up getting there. Obviously, short absence for a guy with a groin injury. I would say that would be my only concern. Groins are usually tricky, right? Like, it's something that could be re-aggravated. I don't love that he missed
one game. I mean, I guess it all depends on how bad it was, and if they were sitting him out because it was a problem, or sitting him out just to give him the day because the holidays were coming.
Caution. Caution. I'm good. I'm indifferent about it. Like, if you end up on Bilal Koulibaly, like, it's a perfectly fine play.
Right. So again, a lot of these guys we've kind of discussed. I think the player pool is rather set. The few that we haven't talked about from an ownership standpoint, again, go down into the value. De Silva, someone you and I talked about on the show this morning, 4,300. The minutes have been legit. He's going to continue to see that kind of playing time for them. And he's starting to make his shots. This is a shot maker show. You start making your shots. The fantasy points kind of fall along. Jaime Jaquez did start that last game. Only played 24 minutes, though. No Larson now. Like, me, if there's no Rozier, there just continues to kind of open up possibilities for him to gain more minutes. But obviously super risky in the opposite side of that matchup. And then KCP is the other one. Like, those are the 3 value guys getting ownership today. We talked Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, ridiculous minutes. Had a couple of games where he knocked down some shots. The defense has been there. I don't love any of these plays. I think I'd be more partial to De Silva than any of them. But what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are exactly that. I think De Silva is the play for me as well. We're also talking about the game with the worst environment on the board.
Right.
I mean, it's 208 implied points, and that's where we're like funneling value from. I'd be okay like moving elsewhere, or just like you said, just kind of playing Amen Thompson here, playing DeAndre Hunter here, playing Koulibaly, playing Murphy, playing Herb Jones at 55 if you want it to be different. Someone asked about Lou Dort. Warren did. No one's playing Lou Dort. So if you want to play Lou Dort, again, there's extra minutes to be had with Alex Caruso not playing. Not that Lou Dort loses minutes, but there are minutes to be had. Caruso is playing like 20s every night. $3,100 Aaron Wiggins. Would it surprise you to see come like lock Aaron Wiggins is in your starting lineup randomly, because that's what happens with OKC. He played when he started the last time he played 31 minutes. So like it's one of those things where, without Caruso, there is a chance. He played 20 minutes, 3 straight games without Caruso earlier and had 20 plus fantasy points. So I think there's different ways to get exposure here instead of just picking from the guys that are in the lowest total. But those guys also do have minutes or like upside, especially on the Orlando side, that probably other guys in this tier don't. The only other name I'd mention, Jalen Wells, playing a bunch of minutes lately for Memphis, just given their injuries. No Huff, no Marcus Smart. He's played 26 and 28 minutes the last 2 games.
What do we do with Cam Whitmore?
We wait to see if Tari Eason plays or not.
Do you think he is strictly Tari Eason?
Like, my hesitation with going to Whitmore is that they also are playing Jayshawn Tate. And one of those guys, I think, gets swallowed up by Tari Eason being back.
So just looking at that last game rotation, Amen Thompson subbed out. Jayshawn Tate subbed in for Amen. Cam Whitmore ended up subbing in for Jabari like a minute or so later. Amen Thompson ends up subbing back in. They all stay on the floor together, and their closing first quarter unit is Amen, Van Vliet, who played the entire first, Steven Adams, Jayshawn Tate, Cam Whitmore. Jayshawn Tate then doesn't come back in that game. He's in the second quarter. He subs out to start the second. Cam Whitmore stayed on the floor. Their opening second quarter rotation actually saw Reed Shepherd play for Jayshawn Tate. It was Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Şengün, Jabari, and Amen. My thinking there is that maybe Tari Eason takes the Tate Shepherd minutes and not the Whitmore minutes, but
well, I think Shepherd's minutes are probably secure because Thompson is not your backup guard in that lineup, or at least because he's starting, right? I'm not saying that Whitmore won't play over Tate, but I think one of them could possibly be out of because they've used Tari to sub in for Jabari to begin with, or like sub in for Şengün to begin with, depending if they want to go big or not. Because sometimes they play a traditional center and sometimes they don't, right? It's just
I mean, having Adams obviously active. Adams didn't play the second or the third quarter of that game. So as you said, they kind of shifted things around and had Jabari involved there. Whitmore, again, was the end of the first, halfway through the second, checked in, end of the third, played the entire fourth quarter. Reed Shepherd played the entire fourth quarter as well. Tate didn't see the floor until the final minute of that there. So we'll see. But obviously, if guys are out, if Tari Eason ends up out, it's an 8 o'clock roster lock. We do know Whitmore had a 31% usage rate in that game. It was the highest of any of the regular players in that game for them. So something to always take into account there. Power forward. Giannis is 11-3. We are expecting Milwaukee to have their players back. Where does Giannis rank for you among the top spend-ups?
Right at the top. I probably 11-3 is really cheap for Giannis. Oh boy. He's probably number one, but 11-3, he's probably like $500 too cheap, $600 too cheap.
We do obviously have some players over on FanDuel, so just quickly kind of swing through some of these. Sexton is definitely near to lock for the slate. We talked about that in our Discord here. Michael, I don't know if you're a member of Fantasy Alarm. If you are and you're not in the Discord, you got to get in there. We were talking. Our guy Justin Carlucci's on the Playbook today. We were talking about the Utah situation. Definitely like Montgomery here. Svi or Queen for Utah if you had to pick one.
Svi is 4K, and the guy getting all the ownership. I'll go Svi. I'll go Svi for cheaper, but Queen's pivot. The pivot if you want to be contrarian.
And then Murray here with a question on Potter. We had that one Potter game where you like doubled out of nowhere.
Dude, he just did it again, like the other day.
Yeah,
every time he's been extended, he's just like weird and does like a lot of, puts up a lot of fantasy points.
No John Collins. I mean,
yeah, he's super popular. So I mean, he's 3,900. You don't really find a lot of players on FanDuel sub 4K that are going to play a lot. So.
Yeah, so I'm definitely good with Potter there. Just kind of given the roster build there over on FanDuel here tonight. All right, so we got the honest conversation. Jalen Johnson, someone that you and I always talk about. Oftentimes it feels like no one's also playing him. Today, mid-tier rostership for Jalen Johnson. So it could give you a little bit of tournament leverage if you wanted to get there.
I feel like I typically do have more interest in Johnson over Trey, but I feel like I've just found myself playing the lesser owned of the two. Like if Trey is more popular than Jalen Johnson, I just play Jalen Johnson. If Trey is less owned than Jalen Johnson, I just play Trey in tournaments, just because they're two great players that have elite ceilings. And I just will play the guy who is lower owned. Right. That's kind of how I feel. I feel the same way. You could play Jalen Johnson. He's lesser owned than Trey. If Jalen Johnson goes for 60 tonight and Trey doesn't, well, you have leverage in a game with 240 implied points.
Right. So you got him there. Obviously, Jalen Williams is in that same tier of pricing, 8K for him. Starting to see the price come down on Jalen Williams, so kind of helps us get maybe a little bit more value out of him. Then the mid tier, we had the Miles Bridges comment here from Faisal. Thoughts on Bridges? $6,800.
Bridges is
if Miller's out, I like him more.
Yeah, it's hard to get to him. It's hard to like really necessarily tell what the minutes are going to be. Looks like in competitive settings, it's low 30s. At least that's kind of all we've gotten since he's come back. Mm-hmm. So low 30s seems to be the minute ceiling right now.
He maxed out at 35 twice this year.
Yeah, and since his 11-19, then he came back almost a month later. Houston was hard to quantify. He had 29. That was a blowout. Philly was second leg of a back-to-back, 29. Those rotations were a nightmare for Charlotte in that back-to-back. And then 32 was the max. So I would say 32. If there's no Miller, 32 minutes, that's a fair price. I mean, if
getting him under 10%, it's a good matchup against Washington. So
tournament appeal, yeah.
But I think Miller has to be out for me to want to get there for tonight. You kind of called out the Sandy Aldama play this morning, because I had, just kind of skipped by him knowing that team was, relatively healthy here. But Aldama is getting ownership love tonight, second highest rostered power forward on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, it's a situation where we've said this from the jump, right? Memphis is very hard to figure out rotationally because they play so many guys, and that hasn't changed. They just play a lot, and they've kind of condensed things, but they've only condensed it because injury. Like Jay Huff's out, Vince Williams out, Marcus Smart's out, or this would be a nightmare. It's still kind of a nightmare, but it's less. I think Aldama's great chalk. You get a guy who has a really high ceiling. He has an infinitely high ceiling if Jaren Jackson gets into foul trouble, and we know he's going to be guarding either Scotty or RJ tonight, probably at times both. So there's even more minutes for Santi there, or Santi. And I think where he benefits is no Jay Huff, Edie Clark, Jackson can play center now because you lose the Huff minutes. So Santi can slide into the 4 more comfortably. Plus, no Marcus Smart, you can move Jalen Wells up to the 2. You could play smaller lineups and or just move Santi to the 3. So you can flex him into both forward spots. So
just got all the Miami news, and they're all playing tonight. Larson and playing. Rozier in,
I guess like for me, Rozier probably becomes the most interesting of them, because at least I know he's gonna play mid to high 20s minutes off the bench. That's just consistent role. No one else has been consistent at all. So for me, Rozier would probably be the favorite of the value tier guys, but also still 208 implied points, super slow pace, makes everything, waters down that whole situation in general. It just completely nukes that situation as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Alexander Sarr is the other one. I'll talk about him at center, but he is the highest rostered player on the slate.
Yeah.
Larry Nance. Warren says still like some Larry Nance. I do. I 5K does not, the price tag is not scaring me away. You went for 5X at 5K based on the last matchup, and it wasn't even really a great performance against Minnesota. This is an elite potential environment for him going up against Chicago here. We did talk about, and we'll talk about it at center, Clint Capella's only 2 20-point scoring games this season came against Chicago. So this seems like a matchup where Capella does have an advantage over Agunku. Now, Nance and Agunku are a little bit of a different style of player. Maybe that leads to Nance getting more playing time tonight, and they kind of split those minutes anyway, so maybe it just leads to Nance being more effective in those playing times. But you look at the 4 games without Agunku on that roster: 30, 48, 32, and 25 fantasy points, 24, 31, 24, 21. I think 21's the low for the minutes. I don't think we get over 30, but if he settles in 25 to 26 tonight, or 24 to 26 tonight at 5K, I would happily be in on that player.
It's hilarious. His price has inflated to where it is, and this is the most ownership he's actually been projected. It's not even a lot, but dude, it's been like every time we've talked about him, it's been like 1%, 2%, 3%. Like Larry, nobody has. The opening slate, people ended up getting to him, but no one has really played Larry Nance at all. Yeah. I mean, it's a solid play. I'd rather probably play De Silva because of the power forward eligibility. But a lot of the Miami stuff that was down here too is now ruined. So I think it's perfectly fine.
Any other values at power forward for you?
No.
All right. Going on over to center then. Again, Şengün, 86. Great spot against Pelicans. Vuk and Bam are up here at the 8K range as well. Again, I think Şengün's the clear one for us. And I think when we ranked it last night, did you have Şengün, Bam, Vuk as the 1, 2, 3 there?
Yep. I'd still keep it that exact way.
Right. Mid-tier range, anybody as a core play for you?
I guess just circling back to the Vooch thing, I guess it would be a bigger discussion depending on what happens with Chicago. If Giddey Dosunmu sit, then there would be a different discussion. Sure.
All right. So where else are we looking at center tonight?
You can play Hartenstein, of course. Goga Batadze is definitely fine. Miles Turner is interesting in tournaments. He's active and available, coming off his best game in quite a while. I really like the price for Miles Turner. $6,300 is a very good price. In a game that I do, I've said it already. I expect to be competitive. I think that this is one of those games too, with how often OKC is slashing to the basket. I mean, there's constantly drive and kick, slash. We know how prolific Turner can be as a shot blocker. So that, is an option for us here, where we get Miles Turner as the shot blocking Miles Turner. Mm-hmm. So I really like 6,300. Yves Missi is interesting, 59, just from a pure activity standpoint. I mean, he just is always on the glass, always rebounding the basketball. So Missi, Jabari's good, Brolo in tournaments. And we, technically we don't have confirmation that like these Milwaukee players are in. We expect them to play, but
expectations are they will, but obviously if they won't.
Yeah, I mean that could, and like, you know what the worst part about it all is they're an 8 p.m. game. Like if they,
randomly set out Giannis or something like that tonight.
Dude, if we're loading up, I mean there are 3 games at 8, but like if I'm playing OKC and I'm playing, all this Orlando value or Washington, Charlotte, and you potentially miss out on what's to come at 8 p.m., like Bobby Portis team to himself or Middleton Portis, or like if Dame or Giannis sit and one of the and they play like so.
That's sort of the late swap building theory, right? Especially on tonight's slates where you have the 7:30 game, which everybody's going to have a lot of exposure to Charlotte, Atlanta. So like you do kind of have a little bit of maneuverability if you kind of build your lineups with like some guys in that game. And then if something happens with Giannis and Dame, you can kind of make some pivots. But yeah, I mean, the hazards of stacking 7 p.m. is just that you then can't move at all.
Right.
Which is just kind of the decision process you're going to have to make.
Yep.
I'm assuming Sarr starts. I'm hoping they just start Sarr. They don't go some like double big nightmare situation here. Again, 2 slates ago, I was on this show. I talked up Sarr. I said he's my favorite center play. Got to get him in. The shot blocking, everything's lining up for an elite play. Nobody played him that night, and he went off against Charlotte for 43 fantasy points. Everybody took note, and now he is the highest rostered player on the slate tonight, $5,400. It doesn't make it a bad play. It makes it chalk I'm willing to eat. I think this is just another great spot for Alexander Sarr.
Yeah, I mean, he was the number 1 pick in the draft until he wasn't, right? He was until like the last week where Ricochet picked up all that steam. It was like Sarr was going to Atlanta, and that was just what it was.
Sarr's been better than Ricochet's been.
He has, for sure. I do think, like...
Atlanta just didn't need another 5.
Yeah, and I do think situation obviously plays into that because, like, Trey and Jalen Johnson have been so good. Atlanta's obviously been surprising in general, and Washington's been a dumpster.
Ricochet is starting, though. He's just, like, not doing...
He
had one game.
He did have that one Fire Flame 30 whatever point game. Yeah, I mean, Sarr, power forward, center, great eligibility, great price. It's always comes down to the scoring for him. When he scores, he's an elite peripheral guy.
Yeah.
Like when he has elevated scoring, he has like gone basically 40 plus fantasy points every single time he's given us anywhere close to 20 points.
Yeah. So you got him. Again, we mentioned Capella. His only 2 20-point games this year have come against Chicago. In those 2 games, he played 27 minutes. He had 42 fantasy points. Played 26 minutes. He had 34 fantasy points. So essentially getting ceiling minutes, 26 and 27 for Capella, and 2 20-point games for him. So you look at the center position tonight. You look at the center ownership tonight. Capella, 4th highest rostered center. Sarr, Misi, Edie, Capella. Basically tells you no one's spending up because there aren't like Jokic and Embiid and Towns and all them on the slate tonight. They want to spend elsewhere. So you're getting everybody just living in like these four guys. Yeah,
and all 4 of them are good plays. I have no objection to any of them. How would you rank them? Your personal record books, JohnImpembaRecordBooks.com. How would you rank them in tournaments?
Sarr, Edie, Capella, Misi.
I would probably only switch Capella and Edie, but I have no problem. I mean, it is worth mentioning. Edie can't 1 Canadian, 2 does play in blowouts as well. So you're probably correct in that one. But I'll just to be different, I'll take Capella over Edie. But I agree on the rest of the rankings.
Any value centers for you tonight?
We had that elongated discussion about Jalen Smith and the double big stuff, but I doubt it. You wanted to mention Khalil Ware, or you mentioned Khalil Ware on the
I mean, everybody being in again though, like I don't know what to do at that point now. Right?
Like, there's just always a chance Kevin Love is your backup center, right?
Brandon Miller will play tonight.
Brandon Miller will play. Okay. What does that do for Charlotte for you in general?
I don't think it changes too much. I think it takes me more off of Bridges than anything. Ball's still going to take 25 shots tonight. but I think it hurts Bridges a little bit.
It does, especially at the price.
And I'm not going to play Miller either at his price.
No, he still prices if LaMelo Ball doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, exactly. So very difficult for me to get there. What did you ask me? You asked me something. What did you ask me?
The clue you had already talked. It was a clue where point.
Yeah, the clue where
you never know. Kevin Love could possibly like randomly just like come off the bench and Clue Ware doesn't play, right? I expect Clue Ware to play, but we've also expected a lot out of
on the Jalen Smith front. He's obviously always a tournament play because he's just a high fantasy point per minute guy. Warren saying, which is praying Mark Williams plays 20 plus. I mean, we did talk Mark Williams a little bit last night as well. In his 19 minutes a night for the last couple of games, he's been pretty legit.
Crazy. Dude, he's crazy.
So yeah, if you want to like see if tonight's the night that Mark Williams plays 24 minutes, 23 minutes, like
what do you
he's
think?
He's not going to go play 30.
No.
So, but like 24, maybe maxed.
Do you think that it's a coincidence when you look at his logs here that he went 11-11, 17-17, 19-19? Do you think that's like a 2 game where we're like, all right, if you can make it through 2 games unscathed, then there's a bump. So like 21, 22, right? Like, is that a realistic expectation that Williams, because we're getting the like 2 games where he's apparently healthy, like they bump him? I mean,
I'm trying to see if we get any reports here. Not really seeing anything. Just the second time this year, the Hornets of Ball, Miller, Bridges, and Williams playing in the same game. That was the last update there. So, again, I put him in the same realm of Jalen Smith as I just said. He's always going to be a tournament play, but obviously the minutes are trending in the much better direction for Mark Williams. He's also $4,900. Would you rather play Mark Williams at $4,900? Maybe he plays 24 minutes, or like Larry Nance at $5K. I feel like the upside's the same for those in terms of minutes and production wise. I know, is Mark Williams that much better than Larry Nance?
Maybe. I would say he's at least been like, I mean, he's been so good scoring, rebounding, Mark Williams. So, but like you could play
these minutes are more secure.
You could play Edie for $200 more. You could play Capella for $300 more. You could play Sarr for $400, $500, $600. Math.
Warren, I agree with you. There's going to be a day where Mark Williams plays 24 minutes and no one's going to play him, and maybe that will be the day. Josh Giddey ruled out.
Okay, so let's go. Let's get the news right now. This is perfect. Give us the news.
Ayo ruled out.
Oh my God, the Bulls are going to be so.
Bazulis ruled out.
THT. He's dynamite. THT.
And we already had, what'd you say earlier today?
Lonzo already out. Dude, just gear up, ladies and gentlemen, for Talon Horton Tucker night. Just don't say I didn't warn you.
You
THT
think so?
All day and twice on a Thursday today, Johnny. Well, like, okay, we got to talk the situation. I know we were going to build. I know it's 6:00. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Vooch, Levine, Kobe White, Pat Williams. Those are your 4 starters, right?
Dude, we didn't really talk about Pat Williams, and I've been talking about Pat Williams a lot since he kind of came back.
You have.
He's $4,200 power forward. I think there is a chance he plays more minutes tonight.
Agreed.
I like him. I like Pat Williams.
Who's your 5th starter? Because now you don't have Giddey, you don't have Ayo, you don't have Lonzo, you don't have Bazulis. It's THT. Is it THT? Is it Phillips? Is it Terry?
Well, you know what? It wouldn't shock me if they went like a Phillips Terry route, just because they
have done it.
They have done that, and those guys won't play a ton, but like they'll start just to keep the rotation side of the way the rotation is, and then those other guys get options there.
We're talking about a team, obviously. So Dyson Daniels is going to stays on Levine, right? That's like what it is. Dude, Kobe White. Oh, I'm going to play all the Kobe White tonight, John.
It's Atlanta 600.
All of it. All of it. I see through you said exactly what I was going to say. He has been bad. Undoubtedly been bad. No question. But like, he's much better than this as a player, as we saw last year. There was a legitimate case where he should have won. Incoming Torrey Craig. That's also
legit. Torrey Craig played like a start this year.
That one, and then he didn't play. He DMP'd literally the next day. It was a back-to-back. Did not play.
28 minutes, broke the slate. 31
DMP did not literally DMP'd on a back-to-back. So here's some numbers. Super small sample. No Io, no Giddey, no Lonzo. Talon Horton Tucker, John. 1.27 fantasy points per minute, leads the team. Kobe White 1.07, Levine 1.1, Vooch 1.09. Kobe White in that scenario, no Giddey, no Dosunmu, no Ball, 31% usage rate, leads the team, almost an 8% usage bump.
Yeah.
Levine 25.5, Horton Tucker about 25, Vooch 23. It's a 240 implied total, where one team just ruled out 3 players that play 20 plus minutes a night. Yeah. 2 of them play 30 minutes a night. The Bulls are now, probably the most intriguing team on the board. And I think we're going to see ownership vastly change where you see Bulls fly up the board. I think Kobe White is an elite play. Tier 1. I think Levine's a tier 1 play, despite the matchup against Daniels. He's going to have the ball a lot. I think your Patrick Williams play is really solid in tournaments. There could be upper 20s minutes.
And the fun part about stacking Chicago is it also, again, potentially gives you the time to make the pivots if, you have to play Bobby Portis.
Make the pivots. And, dude, I'm telling you right now, no Bazulis, no Giddey, no Io. It's a freaking THT night, whether you want it or not. Talon Horton Tucker, baby. And yes, it could put Julian Phillips.
Again, Phillips could start, but we're saying, Talon Horton Tucker is just a guy that is
a vastly better fantasy point per minute player.
Yeah. I mean, he's gross. We don't want to have to play him, but if they start him, you'd have to play him.
I think I legitimately think it's Phillips or Terry. Those are your two starters.
That I would agree with, because they've started earlier this season when those guys have been.
Those are terrible fantasy players. I would just prefer to play THT with Bazulis being rolled out as well.
Yeah.
Unless we heard something from Billy Donovan directly and he said, hey, we're looking at more of the young guys, because he said that. He said that about Bazulis before. But even if Phillips was starting, it is a gross play, just considering how bad he is per minute. Yeah. I mean, even in this scenario, Julian Phillips is a little better, 0.8, but he has a 12% usage rate. DeLon Terry, 0.8, but a 17% usage rate. What do we want to just take the shot on a guy that has a 25% usage rate that arguably could play the same amount of minutes or slightly less? I personally prefer the better fantasy point per minute guy and the higher usage guy. That's all I'm saying. You're right, and Phillips and Terry, that's probably your 5th starter, but I just per minute, Talon Horton Tucker is just the better option of the 3.
I agree. All right, so that's kind of what we got here for this. I guess we build a lineup now, and we'll be using some bolts in that lineup.
I think Kobe White would be the first guy I get to, because it's not like the Daniels assignment changed. Dyson Daniels is still guarding Zach LaVine, and that puts Trey, that puts Bogey at times, that puts Trey on Kobe White,
Let's see. Sarr. We liked Amen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's probably exactly how I would start a cash game lineup or a single entry. This right here, that exact trio of people that you're playing.
Actually, I think we like more players that's shooting guard than small forward, right? We just plug aim.
Small forward stinks. Yes. Trevelyan Queen, that would be my shooting guard of preference for
Queen.
cash. Yeah, Trevelyan Queen for sure.
Power forward then? I mean, are we just getting to Giannis? If we get to Giannis, our pivots would be... It's not really a lot of, I guess, something in Memphis. Toronto would be like Scotty Barnes. Something like that, I guess.
Who's the top power forward on the board? I mean, you could play Jalen Johnson there. You could also play Sarr here if we wanted the flexibility to play another cheap center or spend up at center. Either one.
I mean, would you want to do like Sarr, Şengün, or something like that?
I mean, dude, Trey, oh man, taking Io off the floor for Trae Young is a dream come true for him.
I mean, we can play
good.
We can play that group.
I know. I'm just like thinking of the slate in general. Obviously, that game is riskier for the Bulls to stay competitive in, but you just have to risk it, just given what they have and what they don't.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, did we want to do like a De Silva or something for value, and then like spend up again at util or?
Yeah, we can play De Silva. I mean,
we don't love that game, obviously, but
like I would personally, based on how we see things, I would probably play THT over him. I'm just kind of sold on THT. It could very well flop in tournaments, but I think that there's legitimate tournament, like a ceiling. There's just a tournament ceiling that Julian Phillips and or like some of these players don't have. Anytime we've seen THT extended, it's been a very fruitful fantasy experience.
All right, so we did White, Queen, Thompson, Sarr, Şengün, Young, and Horton Tucker. We'd have $7,300 to go.
Wow.
Patrick Williams says, "But
you know what? Play Williams. Play Williams over THT. Play Williams over THT. And then you can play Van Vliet, I think, as like your final piece in, or you could play
Van Vliet or Bane. Do you have a preference of Van Vliet or Bane?
That's close. The minutes for Van Vliet would definitely be in his favor.
We are playing Şengün and Thompson already.
Oh yeah. I forgot the Şengün part. So play Desmond Bane in that scenario.
All right, White, Queen, Thompson, Sarr, Şengün, Young, Williams, and Bane. Just an example lineup for everybody here. A couple questions to get in here. Warren wants to know thoughts on Boucher.
Tournaments, always better in large field stuff.
Kobe White and Turner, or Vooch and Pat Will? Kobe White and Turner for us here.
Yes, for sure.
Where are we going to go? All right, guys, that playbook is going to be updated and out. We'll have the updated ownership for all of you as well over at Fantasy Alarm, so make sure you check that out. Those of you tuning in, if you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, we got our holiday sale going on, $19.98 a month for all of 2025. That is the 50% off all-pro monthly subscription. It's $39.97. Otherwise, you can cancel it anytime, but you'll have to go back to paying full price. Includes all DFS betting, seasonal draft guides, and cheat sheets. The fantasy baseball season's coming quickly. If you guys play fantasy baseball, you can get that draft guide and cheat sheet as part of your all-pro subscription. That's fantasyalarm.com/holiday. Scan the QR code. The promo code FA Holiday automatically fills in for you and become a member of the Fantasy Alarm family today. We appreciate you all. We'll be back tomorrow. Good luck with your lines. We'll catch you then.